She had dusted his bookshelves for 2 years, without him ever once looking her in the eye. But today he reached for her hand and whispered, "Will you help me do one last thing, before I die?" Patricia Harris had mastered the art of being unseen. For 2 years, she drifted through the marble halls of the Andrews estate like smoke, silent, obedient, nearly invisible, the help, the maid, the woman with strong hands and tired eyes who never asked questions, never lingered. She scrubbed sinks polished enough to reflect a world she didn't belong to. She wiped down books she'd never be allowed to read. She pressed linens smoother than her own life had ever been. Jason Andrews had never said her name. And that was fine. That's not why she was there. She clocked in, she cleaned, she went home to her mother and her daughter, and her silent prayers that one more week's paycheck would be enough. She was a provider, not a dreamer. Still, some days Patricia wondered if she was becoming a ghost. Jason, on the other hand, had everything. On paper. The estate, the empire, the millions. But inside those gilded walls the man was rotting. He had been a lion in his younger years, ruthless and revered. A man who built skyscrapers and destroyed competitors with the same pen stroke. But cancer had made him small, first in body, then in spirit. Now, he mostly stared out the window of the drawing room, barely speaking, letting the days drift past like smoke. No one dared disturb him, not even the doctors, especially not the help. So when Patricia entered the drawing room that morning, damp coat clinging to her arms, fingers raw from bleach, she didn't expect anything. Just another silent day of cleaning around the edge of someone else's sadness. But then, he looked at her, not past her, not through her, at her. "Sir?" she said, startled. Jason's voice came out like gravel. "What's your name?" She blinked. "Patricia. Patricia Harris." He nodded. For a second he said nothing more. She started to turn. "Patricia," he rasped again. "I need to ask you something. A favor." She turned back slowly. "Yes, Mr. Andrews." His eyes, a pale, stormy blue, locked with hers. "My last one." The silence in the drawing room stretched so long that Patricia thought maybe he had forgotten what he wanted to say. She glanced at the mantel clock. Her break was almost over. But Jason's voice came again, low, brittle. "Sit." Patricia hesitated. No one sat in this house, not unless they wore suits or stethoscopes. She sat. He took a long breath through his nose like it hurt to breathe. "I've lived a long time, Patricia, and for most of it I thought I was right. About everything." Patricia didn't respond. She wasn't sure she was meant to. "I thought money would make me immortal," he said, eyes drifting toward the window. "That people could be bought. That time could be tamed." Still, she said nothing, just listened. Jason turned to her, and this time his expression cracked, a thin, painful smile. "But time doesn't care who you are, and death, it doesn't take bribes." A pause. His hand shook slightly on the armrest. "I'm dying, Patricia. The doctors gave me months. That was 10 months ago." Her throat tightened. She'd suspected, everyone had, but hearing it said aloud somehow made it real. "I have one thing left I need to do, one person I need to see." His voice lowered. "But she won't see me." Patricia frowned gently. "Your daughter?" Jason looked startled. "How did you—" She gave a small, apologetic shrug. "You keep her photo on the bookshelf, the one with the broken frame you never let me move." Jason looked away. "She hasn't spoken to me in 15 years, he muttered. "Not since I—" His jaw clenched. "Never mind." A long silence. Then very quietly he said, "I want you to find her, deliver her something, and say something to her for me." Patricia leaned forward slowly. "Mr. Andrews, Why me?" He looked at her. Not like a billionaire, not like a boss, like a man unraveling. "Because you're the only person in this house who sees people." Before this story moves any further, Take a moment. If you're still watching, that means something in this story speaks to you. Don't just feel it, support it. Click subscribe, because every time you do, stories like this get to live and people like Patricia get to be seen. Patricia stared at him. You want me to go to your daughter? And say what? Jason reached into the side table and pulled out an envelope. It was thick, handwritten, old. Tell her I was wrong, he said, and that I never stopped loving her, even when I didn't know how to show it. Patricia's chest tightened. She took the envelope with slow hands. You think she'll listen to me? Jason looked down at the floor. No. But I'm hoping she'll listen to you. Patricia didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table long after her daughter had gone to bed, the envelope in front of her like it might explode. Her fingers traced its edges over and over, as if searching for a reason to open it. She didn't. Instead, she stared out the window into the streetlight's glow and whispered, Why me? She wasn't a messenger. She wasn't a therapist or a family fixer. She was a maid, a mother, a woman trying not to drown in bills and worry, delivering a dying man's confession to a daughter who probably hated him. That wasn't part of the job description. The next morning, she stood outside Jason's door for a full minute before knocking. Come in, came his voice, weak but awake. She stepped inside. The room smelled of antiseptic and lavender oil. He was propped up against a mound of pillows, thinner than she remembered, eyes sunken. He smiled faintly. You still have it? Patricia nodded, holding up the envelope. I didn't open it. Good. A long pause stretched between them. I'm not sure this is a good idea, she said finally. What if she slams the door in my face? Then at least I'll know I tried, Jason said softly. You'll be the only proof I ever meant to make it right. Patricia stared at him. Why not just write her directly? I did. He nodded toward the envelope. But she won't read it if it comes from me. She'll burn it. She won't even open the seal. Patricia sighed. And you think a stranger knocking on her door will change that? Jason didn't answer immediately. Then, no, I think you might. She let the silence settle. His faith felt too heavy. Mr. Andrews, she said slowly, I've watched people throw their pain at the wrong people. It doesn't fix anything, it just spreads it. Jason's voice cracked. I'm not trying to fix myself. I just want her to know I see it now, that's all. Patricia looked down at the envelope again. So many words pressed between the pages. Regrets, apologies, ghosts. She wasn't sure which scared her more, delivering the message, or what it might stir in her own heart. That night, she told no one. Not her mother. Not her daughter. She simply laid the envelope on her dresser, stared at it for hours, and whispered a prayer she didn't even believe in anymore. God, what if I mess this up? If you were Patricia, would you go, or let it be? Is it worth risking your peace for someone else's closure? Tell us what you think. Would you deliver that letter? Jason's condition worsened that week. He barely ate. His hands trembled. His doctor visited twice, and his lawyer once, whispering about estate transitions and power of attorney behind closed doors. The mansion felt heavier, the staff quieter. Patricia tried to do her work and pretend she didn't notice. But on Thursday morning, Martha met her at the door with red eyes and a nervous fidget. He's asked for you. Patricia blinked. Me? Martha nodded. Specifically. Jason's room had changed. The curtains were drawn. The lights were soft. The air smelled like eucalyptus and death. Sit, he croaked. Patricia sat by the bed without a word. I know I said one favor, he muttered, but I'm asking another. She didn't answer, not with words. She simply looked at him, waiting. I need someone here, Jason said. Someone who doesn't lie to me, not for pills or paperwork, just here. Patricia felt something twist in her chest. She was supposed to be on shift until 2, but something about the way he looked at her, hollowed out, almost childlike, made it impossible to walk away. So she stayed. She wiped his forehead when the fever flared, held the straw to his lips when the water trembled in his hands, sat beside him in silence when the pain grew sharp and the morphine dulled his tongue, and in the quiet hours they talked, not like Billionaire and Maid, but like two people at the edge of something they couldn't name. "You ever lose someone?" Jason asked, eyes barely open. "My husband," Patricia said quietly. "Car crash. 10 years ago." Jason let out a thin breath. "I'm sorry." "He wasn't perfect," she murmured, "but he loved our daughter." That was enough. Jason was quiet a long time. Then his voice broke. "I wasn't enough." Patricia looked at him. "For who?" "For everyone." The words hung heavy in the room. "You know what's worse than dying," he whispered. "Knowing you lived all this time and no one really knew you. Not even your own child." Patricia swallowed. "Maybe they didn't know who you were because you never let them." Jason closed his eyes. "I'm trying now." The next morning, Patricia didn't clock out at 2. She stayed. She didn't know why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something deeper. Maybe for once someone saw her too. And for a woman used to being invisible, that was something. It started with a question Jason hadn't asked before. "Do you believe people can change?" Patricia hesitated. "Sometimes, but not for long." Jason didn't argue. He just stared at the ceiling. "I was 29 when I made my first million," he said, voice soft with memory. "By 33, I owned half of downtown, but I didn't know how to be soft. I thought success meant control." Patricia stayed quiet, folding towels at the end of his bed. She was 4 when her mother left. "My daughter." His voice caught. "I told myself I'd give her everything she needed. Tutors, travel, opportunity." His eyes darkened. "But I didn't give her me." Patricia sat beside him now, no longer just the maid. She was a witness, a mirror. "What happened?" she asked gently. "I missed her birthday. 3 years in a row," he said. "I made her cry at her graduation because she wore a dress I didn't like. I once told her," his voice faltered, "I told her love was a distraction, that emotions were for people with nothing else to do." Patricia winced. "I buried my own wife 2 years later," Jason whispered. "By then, my daughter had already stopped calling." He turned to look at Patricia. "You have a daughter. How do you do it?" She smiled faintly. "I show up. Even when I'm tired. Even when I don't know how." Later that day, Patricia went into the library to dust, not because it needed it, but because she needed a minute alone. That's when she saw it. Tucked between 2 ledgers on the shelf was a small notebook, worn leather, barely held together. Curious, she pulled it out. Inside were pages and pages of letters, never sent. "I saw you on TV today. You looked beautiful. I kept your 3rd grade drawing, the one with the blue dog. I wanted to call, I didn't." Tears welled in Patricia's eyes. He had been writing to her for years. That night, she returned to Jason's room with the notebook in hand. "You should have sent them," she said softly. He looked at it like it might burn him. "I was too ashamed." "Then let me give her both," Patricia said. "The letter and this." Jason's hand trembled as he touched the cover. "She won't forgive me." Patricia met his eyes. "That's not your choice. But giving her the truth is." He nodded slowly. "You'll go?" "I'll go." Something shifted then, not in the room but in both of them. A wall cracked, a wound breathed, and for the first time, neither felt so alone. Jason had a better day. The nurse said his vitals looked steady for the first time in weeks. His appetite was small but there, and his eyes, they had a little light in them again. Patricia wheeled his chair to the sunroom, his favorite place when he still had the strength to walk. The afternoon light streamed through the tall glass, painting soft gold across the tiles. He closed his eyes. "I forgot what warmth felt like." Patricia smiled, handing him a cup of tea. "That's because you live in a castle and never open the windows." He chuckled, a dry, crackling sound that made her blink in surprise. "I used to laugh more," he said. "What happened?" He looked at her, expression soft. I forgot what it felt like to be around someone who wasn't afraid of me. They talked about simple things that day. Not regrets, not cancer, just life. She told him about the time her daughter tried to cook spaghetti and nearly set the stove on fire. He laughed again, not the broken wheeze, but something real from deep inside. He told her about a golden retriever he had when he was 12, how it used to sneak onto his bed every night no matter how many times his father punished it. They sat like that for hours, two people with nothing in common on the surface and everything in common underneath, loneliness, love, the ache of time. Near sunset, Jason looked at her, eyes glassy. "Do you ever think the people we lost can hear us?" Patricia looked at the sky. "Sometimes. When it's quiet enough, I talk to them anyway." "What do you say?" She took a breath. "I say, I'm still trying." He closed his eyes. "I think that's the bravest thing anyone can say." Later, as Patricia tucked a blanket around his legs, he reached out, not to stop her, but to hold her wrist. "You make the world feel kind again," he said. Her throat tightened. "You make me feel real again," she whispered. They sat in the fading light, not billionaire and maid, not boss and employee, just a man and a woman, sharing silence, sharing humanity. And for a moment it felt like maybe, just maybe, healing was possible, but it wouldn't last. Nothing golden ever does. Jason had been restless all morning. He kept checking the clock, staring toward the door, asking if Patricia had packed the envelope. She had, along with the leather-bound notebook of unsent letters. The plan was simple. Patricia would leave that evening. She'd travel across state lines, find Jason's daughter, and hand over the truth. But something in Jason had shifted. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was both. "You sure you're ready to do this?" Patricia asked, kneeling beside his chair. Jason didn't answer. "Because if you're not, I won't force it," she continued. "But if I go, I'm going all in. I'll tell her everything." Jason's jaw clenched. "What if she hates me more?" he said, voice tight. Patricia blinked. "That's not your choice to control anymore." Silence. Then Jason snapped, not with volume, but with venom. "You act like you know what it's like." Her breath caught. "You talk to me like you're some wise angel of mercy," he said bitterly. "But what do you know about failure on my scale? What do you know about watching your legacy disappear because of one wrong choice?" Patricia stood slowly, pain flickering across her face. "You're right," she said, voice calm but sharp. "I don't know what it's like to lose $1 million company." She turned toward the door. "But I do know what it's like to bury your husband and keep breathing. I know what it's like to walk into rooms every day where people don't see you. I know what it's like to carry someone else's shame and still try to show up with grace." Jason looked away, jaw tight. "I've been nothing but kind to you," she said, tears threatening. "I stayed when I didn't have to. I listened when no one else did. And I'm still willing to go on this damn trip, even when I'm scared out of my mind." "Then don't," Jason snapped. "Forget it." Patricia froze. His voice was cold again, billionaire cold. "You don't have to play savior. You were paid to clean, not to fix me." The words hit like a slap. Patricia stared at him for a long moment, her chest rising and falling. Then quietly, "I wasn't trying to fix you, I was trying to care." She placed the envelope and notebook on the table. "If you don't want my help, say it." Jason looked at the window, said nothing. Patricia nodded. "That's what I thought." And she walked out. In his chair, Jason closed his eyes, the weight of regret settling heavier than ever. He had chased everyone away, again. Only this time, he knew he had no one else to blame. The envelope still sat on the table untouched, the notebook too. Jason hadn't moved them. It had been 2 days since Patricia left the room. She still came to work, quietly, professionally. But her presence was different now, distant, measured. Her movements were efficient. Her eyes never lingered. She became invisible again, and Jason hated it. The 3rd day, he asked Martha if she could bring him a tray. When she returned, she placed it beside him, turned to leave, then hesitated. She cried in the kitchen this morning, Martha said softly. She doesn't want to, but she does. Jason didn't respond. Martha straightened. Don't die with the only person who gave a damn about you hating you, Jason. And she walked out. That night, Patricia stayed late. The rain had started to fall, heavy and rhythmic on the windows. She was putting away silverware when she heard the faintest voice behind her. Patricia. She turned. Jason stood in the doorway of the dining room, barely standing, clutching the frame for support. He hadn't left his room in weeks. Her eyes widened. What are you doing? He didn't answer right away, just looked at her, with fear, and something deeper. Something raw. I was wrong, he said, voice trembling. What I said to you, what I've said to everyone. She stayed still. I pushed you away because you were the only person who made me want to stay, and that scared me. Her breath hitched. Jason took another shaky step forward. I don't want to die small, Patricia. I want to die seen, and you see me, even when I don't deserve it. She blinked back tears. Jason. I can't change what I did, he whispered. But I still want to try, to say what should have been said. Please help me do that, help me deliver it. He reached into the pocket of his robe and pulled out the envelope and the notebook. I still want you to go. Patricia stared at them, then at him, then down. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. I wanted to walk away. I thought it would be easier. He nodded. It probably would be. But I couldn't, she whispered, because you made me feel seen too. Silence stretched between them, and then she walked forward, took the envelope, held his hand. I'll go, she said softly, and I'll come back. Jason smiled, broken, beautiful, real. Thank you, he said. The town was quiet, quieter than Patricia expected. Grace Andrews lived in a modest two-story home with a white fence and a wild garden that hadn't been tamed in months. There was a child's bicycle on the lawn, a faded swing tied to an old oak tree. Patricia stood at the gate for a full minute before she moved. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last, not because of fear, but because of how much was riding on this moment. For Jason, for his daughter, for something neither of them knew how to fix. She knocked. The door opened partway. A woman, early 40s, hair tied back, eyes guarded, peered out. Yes? Grace Andrews? Who's asking? Patricia steadied herself. My name is Patricia Harris. I worked for your father. Grace's face darkened. She started to close the door. He's dying, Patricia said quickly. And he asked me to give you these. She held out the envelope, then the notebook. Grace froze. He wrote them for you, for years. He just never sent them. There was a long, painful silence. Grace looked at the envelope, then at Patricia, then down at the floor. Why would you do this? She asked, voice flat. Patricia's voice trembled. Because he couldn't, and because sometimes people don't get a second chance unless someone else delivers it for them. Another long pause. And then, without a word, Grace took the envelope. Her hand lingered on the notebook. Tears welled in her eyes. I hated him, she whispered. Patricia nodded. He knows. And now he wants peace. No, Patricia said. He wants to say he was wrong. Patricia didn't stay long. She didn't need to. She'd delivered more than letters. She'd delivered truth. And sometimes that's all anyone can give. 3 days later, Jason died. He passed in his sleep, the morning sun creeping into his room just as the breath left his body. There was no struggle, no pain, only quiet. Beside him on the nightstand was a photograph, a recent one. It showed a woman holding a little girl, both smiling gently at the camera. A note was taped to the back. She came, she read, she cried, "Thank you." Grace. At the small private funeral there were only a few guests, but one of them was Grace, and the other, standing quietly by the back, holding a single white rose, was Patricia Harris. They met eyes once across the rows of empty chairs. No words were exchanged, But in that look, something passed between them. Not just gratitude, not just forgiveness, but recognition. Two women, forever changed by the same broken man. And something else too. Hope. Later that day, Patricia walked home slowly through the warm breeze. The sky was soft. Her heart was full. Her daughter called just as she reached the door. "Hey, Mama, how was your day?" Patricia smiled into the phone. "You know," she said softly, "I think today I helped someone finally come home." Do you believe true love, even broken, imperfect love, can be redeemed in the end? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't just walk away. Subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone else needs to hear this next.